just filmed a whole section of me in cinematic, and I don't think anybody wants to see me close up today, to be honest. Hello everybody, and welcome back to a brand new Sims video. As you can probably tell by today's title, we are going to be discussing, is The Sims 4 Get to Work the worst expansion pack in The Sims 4? Let's begin. Major disclaimer here, people. If I sound nasally or look disgusting, I know I do, I'm battling the flu. Why have I filmed this today? Don't know. Felt like it. Anyway, let's begin. This video would not be amiss if I didn't give you a bit of backstory, because I do feel like The Sims 4 Get to Work, probably more so than other expansion packs, is very much a product of its time. So it was first released in March of 2015. So at this point, we're talking it's nearly 10 years old. It's 9 years old. That's ridiculous. That's crazy. So you got to remember that The Sims 4 has just released. And I'm going to be honest, it had released and it felt half finished. And that was a really big critique at the time, is that in some areas it was really good. Like the introduction of the motions was seen, I think for the most part, is pretty positive, although slightly annoying, but mostly positive. And they had so many like cool things that were introduced, like the rocket science skill was introduced. Bit of an odd one, but like cool. But they didn't have enough new features that made you go, like, I'm gonna play with this for hours on end. Well, I think I still did, but like, you get the point that it got stale quite quick. And obviously when you had something as complete as The Sims 3, it was really hard not to make comparisons and to be like, this game just feels really unfinished. And I guess even if you compare the Sims 3 base game to what we were given in the Sims 4 base game in 2014, yeah, it was pretty poor, let's be honest. For those people that weren't around in that era, we're talking you would have babies and they would just grow up into children. We didn't have pools back then. I don't even know, did we even have fences back then? I don't even think we had terrain tools. It was something. It was something, but I'm not sure it was good. It was an era. Anyway, sorry, I don't want to go on a ramble too much. So I think at the time, it was very much kind of like the excitement about the first expansion pack and what they might do was kind of an absolute overload. And then it was announced that it was going to be The Sims 4 Get to Work. And I'm not really sure how it was met at the time, if I'm being honest with you. I think because I was 11, I was very excited about it. I was like, just take my money, I want it so badly. I was just really excited. I'm not really sure what the reviews were back in the day, but now that I've looked at it, some reviews are 100% and some reviews are, like on Steam currently, it's a 6 out of 10, which I think says a lot, but I actually think that's quite a good score, to be honest. Anyway, there we go. You've also got to remember that I do wonder how much of so EA at the time, EA and Maxis were like this, so they're part of EA. So Maxis was always part of EA since like 1997, but they'd kind of been separate studios. So like The Sims had been under Maxis, and up until I think about September of 2015, they were like separate studios, and then they kind of integrated. I think a lot of the Maxis team just ended up moving into the EA Sims team, but they did lose some people, which I do think is important, and I do kind of wonder whether that was partly why The Sims 4 was left the way that it was, if that makes sense. I actually don't know. Am I just being a conspiracy theorist? I do not know what is going on. The point is, it's a product of its time, okay? The Sims 4 Get to Work was actually kind of taken, I think, largely positive because the base game was so poor that it just needed something. And I think we were at the time really grateful for Get to Work. And I actually, at the time, I would say was worth the £30 price tag because it really did actually help the game in terms of depth and just the addition to do something. But now... when you look at it now, is it that good of an expansion pack? Let's be for real, no. Basically, what I'm saying is, take my review of Get to Work with an absolute pinch of salt, because it is a product of its time, baby, but we're gonna get into it anyway. Every Sims expansion pack, game pack, stuff pack has a niche. There is something in there that you either really want in your game or you want it really improved in your game. For example, the new Life and Death pack. Death is not done very well in The Sims, so you would probably want that pack to try and improve that aspect. Do you know what I mean? I think you get what I mean. Now, The Sims 4 Get to Work, the whole point and the kind of niches that they gave us was all around active careers and owning your own shop. But specifically, I remember it being really big on baking and bakeries. I don't remember why, but that's the niche that they chose to go with. So that's the niche I'm telling you. So count how many times I said niche in the space of 2 minutes. Anyway, let's begin. So you have 3 different active careers. You have a detective, a scientist, and a doctor. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me how they picked them. I do not know, but there you go. Now, do I actually think these careers in general are done really well? To a degree, yes. I think they are actually done really, really well. I know that the detective career at the minute is ever so slightly buggy, but that is like a problem with it now. It wasn't a problem back then. At the time, I remember having a lot of fun with being a detective and being a scientist and being a doctor. So yeah. The actual careers itself were really fun. They were kind of detailed, I would say. Like, to be fair, they're pretty detailed. Particularly the scientist career, because you had the introduction of aliens and Sixum as a concept, and I think that's pretty cool. I do it all in all think the lots and the actual careers are very well thought out and very good. However, nowadays I do find them ever so slightly irritating. So obviously for most jobs you have to kind of boost your skills, but with the active careers you don't. There is normally something really niche that you have to do. So in my Sims 4 Let's Play series, cheeky little plug, at the minute she is a doctor and she has to perform surgery on so many patients in order to get promotion, which is fine, but it's tedious and it's a bit annoying because you can't then go send them to the rabbit hole if you wanted to, because they wouldn't get a promotion without you being there, which is, I guess, the point, because they're meant to be active careers, but it's not always possible to just drop what you're doing and go with your Sims. But back in 2015, I didn't care so much. I actually quite enjoyed the active career. I think it was partly because there wasn't much more else to do. So it was kind of seen as a welcome addition for that reason. But yeah, I don't mind the careers. I know, like I said, I know that the detective career is a bit buggy at the minute, but all in all, the actual careers I don't think were done badly. What I do think was done badly is the world. Magnolia Promenade will forever be the world's biggest disappointment to me, because it had so much potential. I don't want to compare it too much to the Sims 3 Ambitions, but if we compare the world of Twinbrook, which offered so much, Magnolia Promenade is just such a downgrade. Like, it's not even like a comparison, it's that much of the downgrade. Anyway. So why is it so much of the downgrade? I just think there was so much potential, right? They could have had a separate bit for they could have introduced a hospital, they could have introduced a police station, they could have introduced like a science lab and made neighborhoods around it. They could have had a retail section as well. Like, they could have made it into such a cool expansion pack, and instead it kind of just falls flat. And I really think Magnolia Promenade summarizes that to a degree. Like, I just really think it does. It's such a disappointing world, and I remember a lot of Simmers at the time being quite disappointed, because a lot of us were like, is this the direction the Sims are going in? Like, are we just going to get less for our money? We're going to get less depth, less gameplay. Like, it was slightly frustrating because, you know, Sims 4 was hyped for so long, and the first expansion pack you get is that. And it's, like I said, it's not that the expansion pack itself is bad, it's just that it kind of could have been better. It just didn't fulfill its full potential, which is sad. Anyway, let's talk about the second niche. Owning your own retail store / bakery. I don't really remember why baking was such a big deal. I mean, it was very much a welcomed addition. I like the fact that you could be a baker in The Sims 4. I like the fact that you can own a bakery. Do I do it very often? No. Especially given that actually one of the biggest products that was like really promoted in The Sims 4 was the cupcake machine. I don't even think, does the cupcake machine still exist? It must do, but I haven't used it since 2014. I can tell you that for free. But yeah, they had so many different perks that you could get with shops. You could buy different things. You could employ employees, believe it or not. You could like choose the employees' outfits, you could get advertising. Like, they really had thought out the details of owning a shop, which I quite enjoy. And I have to admit, even throughout the years, owning a retail store is not that buggy. And I say this because if you compare it to like owning a restaurant, for example, which is very, very buggy, yeah, it's definitely stood the test of time, which is good, which is a good thing. But it is not without its complaints. Yeah, you didn't think it was going to go that way, did you? I do find that the retail system as a whole, it's a bit slow. It's a bit like the careers, if I'm being honest, where it's a little bit tedious. The retail system is the exact same, where you have to keep constantly talking to customers. Sometimes they do build it up by themselves, and they will, like, all you gotta do is bring them up. But yeah, it's a little bit tedious, it's a little bit slow, especially when you're first starting off. Don't get me wrong, it is profitable, but it's just a bit slow. Which, to be fair, I don't know that is anything that the Sims team could have done about that, but it just is what it is. So, all of that aside, is those two niches, are they enough to make the expansion pack £30? Now, I'm saying £30 because back in 2015 when it first released, it was £30. And I'm gonna be honest, I very much felt at the time that the answer is no, because even though I did play with it, it really made me realize that actually I'm not going to want to buy every single expansion pack that the Sims team are putting out, because it lacked a lot of depth, and it just, like, even the create a sim items, like, there wasn't a lot, and build and buy, there wasn't loads. So yeah, it was just a bit disappointing. I should say the other introduction that Get to Work had was aliens. Now, aliens are not a new concept by any means. Like, they are not new to the Sims franchise. And I do still think it's a weird pack that they introduced it into, now that I look back. But then at the same time, I guess it kind of makes sense with the scientist career, but like, it also is just a bit confusing. Like, why did they do that? I don't know. Yeah, so they had a couple of new features with this pack, but like I said, if we're going to compare it to something like The Sims 3 Ambitions, where you had all these active careers but you also had an amazing world, and then the introduction of consignments, which I think is why we got the introduction of like retail alongside these active careers, because they were trying to do what they did with Ambitions. But it fell flat because the world was not as good. You had one world that you could use, which was disappointing, and one world that you couldn't even use, so what was the point? Like, even now, unless you go and play with them or you have a baby, you're never going to use the worlds. I really feel like they also could have expanded, particularly, like, I'm thinking of like the detective career. Like, they could have introduced like burglars and like other criminal activity, which could have just spiced up your game just that little bit more, particularly back in 2014 when we were just lacking so much. Like, they could have done so much. So, bearing in mind, I did not think it was worth the £30 price tag back in the day. Do I think it's worth the £35 price tag now? No. No. Gonna be honest? Nope. And I actually think that about a lot of the early expansion packs, including Get Together, which might be an unpopular opinion, but most people like Get Together because of the world, not necessarily because of the club aspect. How often do you guys play with clubs? Because I can guarantee you it's not that often. Okay, maybe some people do, but like, I definitely don't. Okay, so I always think that the earlier expansion packs, game packs, stuff packs are not worth however much they were at the time. However, I think nowadays the Sims do tend to run a lot more sales, and you can obviously buy it from other retailers as well, and they often do make it a little bit cheaper than that. I think you can get it for about around the £10 or just above the £10 mark, which I do think is a fair amount. I think that's a pretty good amount to pay, if I'm being honest. I think that's pretty fair. So what would I love to see? Now, obviously, I'd spoken already about Project Renee happening, and I would actually love for EA to do something as radical as giving their earlier expansion packs a makeover and a bit of a overhaul. Now, I don't know whether they would do this, but I think it would be a really welcomed addition if they did. I would love for them to make a new world and like really go to town with it, kind of like what I was saying earlier with making like, but did my voice just crack, with making a detective section, a doctor, like a more hospital section and a scientist section. I think that would be really, really cool. I'm not asking them to like massively introduce things that they haven't already done. I would also love for them to maybe introduce another career just to spice it up a bit. I'm not really sure what they would do now, but like, I don't know, another little one would be really, really cool. I would love for them to do that. I feel like the world really lets it down. I also would love for them to fix their detective career. That would be much appreciated as well. I would love for them to just give an update to the creator sim and the build items, because obviously they're so outdated now. You kind of look at them and you're like, no. Like, how many of you guys actually use the items from Get to Work? And I'm not saying like the retail items, I'm saying like the generic furniture, because I don't think I do. I don't even think I put my Sims in those items either. So I would love to see them overhaul it and completely give it a bit of a makeover. Do I think they will do this? No. They will never do this, will they? But it would be really cool if they did, because I generally feel like the earlier expansion packs could do with a little bit of an uplift, a little bit of a makeover. I would love to see it happen. But to answer the video and the title's question, and probably you guys' question, do I think The Sims 4 Get to Work is the worst expansion pack? To be honest, yes. I'm thinking about the expansion packs that I don't currently own in my game as well, and the ones that I do own. It's generally, to me, one of my lesser used packs. It's one of those packs that I feel like majority of people could live without. Like, there's other packs that you probably want more so than The Sims 4 Get to Work. So, yeah, you could probably live without it, to be honest with you. I would say if you're gonna get it in the sale, get it in the sale. You gotta remember that if you're buying any of the earlier expansion packs, like Get to Work, Get Together, etc., etc., expect a pack that it probably doesn't have as much depth as you want, and it has less creator sim and less build items. Basically, lower your expectations. Now, don't get me wrong, this is not me saying that the Sims 4 team had massively improved. There are still some expansion packs that do fall a bit flat for me, aka Lovestruck, but for the most part I feel like the quality has improved a lot compared to the start of The Sims 4, so beggars cannot be choosers. But yeah, I definitely would not be paying the £35 fresh mark. Anyway, if EA was to overhaul it, what would you guys like to see in the game? I'm actually interested what everybody else would introduce, because yeah, I think it would be really fascinating to see what you guys would add in. Anyway, that's cool. That's it. That's a wrap. I apologise that this video was me looking like this and voice cracks and nasally, but thank you so much for persevering with me, and I really hope that you guys have enjoyed this more ranty and more commentary video. If you have, then please leave a like, go subscribe if you haven't already, go leave a comment, and hopefully I'll see you all next time. Bye guys! We're done now.